Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Carly Dowdell, and welcome to your Black Friday Cyber Monday Agency Roundtable. We're joined today by our partners Tinuiti, Electriq Marketing, Roswell Studios, and EY Studios. These partners are going to break down real insights and actual tips to help you tackle the rest of the holiday season and thrive in 2024. So with that being said, I will go ahead and start with Tinuiti. If you all just want to do a brief introduction, what your role is and where you're located.
Sure thing. Hey, everybody. Josh Briscoe, Group VP of Acquisition Media here at Tinuiti. I'm based in San Diego, California.
Nice. Elisa, you want to kick us off next?
Hey, everybody. Glad you could join us. My name's Elisa. I'm the VP at Electriq Marketing, and I'm based in St. Augustine, Florida.
Nice. And then Maya?
Hi, Maya Yachtman. I am the Director of Retention Marketing at Roswell Studios, and as I'm sure you just heard from the streets, I am in Brooklyn. So if there's background sound, I'm sorry.
No worries. We had to switch it up with at least one cold place. And then Eric, go ahead and take us home.
Hey guys, I'm Eric Young. I'm the CEO and Creative Director of EY Studios. Glad to be here today. We're in Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and kick things off because I know we only have 25 minutes. So we will go ahead and dive into the first question. So the first question I have for you is, how are brands positioning Black Friday, Cyber Monday's deals this year? Did you see any new sales tactic or special offers to incentivize conversion? And we will kick it off with Tinuiti first.
Yeah. What struck me as different this year was that in past years, we'd see a lot of kind of rotating promos and things would be live for like a day or two at a time. Very different promo cycles for Black Friday versus Cyber Monday. And what we saw this year was really kind of just more flattened promos that would start maybe even like a week ahead of Black Friday and then would, in many of our cases, are still the same promos going on. You're 30-40% off, like site-wide and things like that. So I know, and speaking from like an account team's perspective, it's a lot easier to execute those, and I'd have to assume so on the client side back end. But that really struck out to me as something that was really different from other years, just that flat promo cycle.
Yeah, not mad about it as
Me too.
someone that loves to shop. Elisa, anything on your end?
Definitely, we saw a lot more of like these, like rather than like a site-wide 30% off or 50% off or whatever it is, we saw a lot more of like buy X and get X free, or a lot more bundled and like tiered promotion. So like you have to put in the work in order to get the incentive back from the brand. And I don't know if anybody else kind of felt this, but it seemed like across the board, a lot of consumers seemed kind of like disappointed with some of the sales this year. But it's funny because we see the stats come out and we hit another record for Shopify sales as well. So it's funny that like, despite the consumer kind of like disappointment in what these sales look like and them not being as good as they have been in past years, people were still shopping and quite a bit. So, yeah. And there was a lot more of like an expansion into like Cyber Week. I've been getting emails from like REI and they're like, it's Cyber Month. And I'm like, okay, guys, like, hold on a second, calm down, you know? So it seems like they've just kind of like transitioned things a little bit to kind of mesh with the current economic trends that we're seeing across the board as well.
Yeah, of course. I think that just goes to what Josh was saying, is that it's starting earlier and ending later. And then I noticed the same thing, is some brands didn't even do deals, or it was just, unlock free shipping, which from a fulfillment standpoint, we always tell brands to do that. But yeah, that was interesting as well. And then Maya, how about anything you were seeing on your end?
So I was seeing actually people, so typically you'd start like a holiday sale in the beginning of November, but people were now pitching it as their Black Friday early access. One brand that did that is Walmart. I don't know if you saw, they launched November 8th, and then they were doing like flash deals all throughout the rest of the month. And so they were still having like a high impact weekend where people were still coming back to see like what else was going to go on sale. And what was, I think, really interesting about it is not only were customers incentivized to continue coming back, continue looking throughout the month, but they were purchasing more than one time throughout the month because their items were either going to go out of stock or they were going to go on a bigger discount. So I thought it was actually really interesting. And then also Our Place did a really good job of that too. And if you haven't watched the Walmart Mean Girls commercial, I highly recommend it.
I'm gonna have to watch that one. And yeah, we love Our Place. They always kill it for their holiday season, what they're offering. Eric,
Mhm.
anything you were seeing on your end from brands you work with or just brands you like?
Well, like Alyssa was saying, when you come out and you say it's Cyber Month, a lot of consumers kind of conflate Black Friday with Cyber Monday. They're not sure exactly how it gets distinguished. And so what we've seen a lot of brands, what we've done a lot for our clients is teaser campaigns that are educational and that they don't feel like homework. That we put a little humor to them. And so it really helps set the table, so to speak, in terms of what's coming. And so you're really getting the customers into a lather. They're really excited about it. So once it finally hits, they get it. They're not confused. And so it really kind of helps prime the event. So we've done a lot of that. And
Yeah,
video is something we've done to really help transform that.
yeah, I love that. And yeah, I feel like video content is always super helpful. Cool. So to kick things off with the next question, I will go ahead and start with Eric. I'll let you kick it off. What is the most interesting trend you saw across the brands you work with over Black Friday, Cyber Monday this year?
Well, Carly, I think you mentioned it earlier. We've seen and experienced a lot of brands that are not doing any discounts. You don't want to destroy your brand in the middle of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If you're not a discount house, you don't need to brand yourself suddenly as one, because then you got to pay the price next year for that. And it can kind of create this incongruency with that. And so for those brands, we've really encouraged them to come out with products that have like a limited shelf life, really exclusives. There's a lot of ways you can generate excitement beyond just the discounts. And we've seen some success with that this year.
Yeah, the one I was referring to was Viore, which I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with. They just did like a free, I think it was like beanie with a purchase of like $150. So not really, a deal off like a 40% or 30% or really what we're used to seeing. So I thought that was super interesting from a really popular brand, but also probably super intentional. And then I will kick it off to Maya.
So there were a lot of really cool trends, but one that actually isn't that fun, but I think was really effective for brands all around was plain text emails. We spend hours designing and working through different elements on our emails, where actually I think it's really worthwhile testing throughout the year if plain text it works for you, because it's better for deliverability, and in high traffic moments like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it could be good for your reminders, if not your announcements.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, for me, there's so much that goes into spam. I'm sure, I don't know if any of else someone can relate. And then subject lines. Like, did you see anything like, were you guys A/B testing subject lines a ton? I know that's like the main thing I am always curious on, or what gets me to open an email is really what that subject line is.
Definitely. I think every brand is different too. So you have to test what works for you. What works for one doesn't necessarily mean it'll be up your alley.
Totally. And then Elisa, anything on your end?
So this kind of ties back to my initial response. Like, again, a lot of these like bundled sort of promotions, or like if you spend $100, then you get 10% off. And if you spend $200, you get 30% off, and so on and so forth. Like a lot of the concern that our clients had was like, okay, yeah, like this is like the Super Bowl for us, but how do we like win the Super Bowl without breaking the bank? So a lot of the brands that we were working with were really focused on like increasing AOV rather than just getting like as many purchases as possible. So it's funny because like the brands that we were working with, and I think that's more of like a kind of like smaller brand sort of, not mentality, but like something that smaller brands tend to go for is like always trying to increase average order value. Whereas like Maya, the example that you gave with Walmart, and you see with like other brands where it's like, let's go back and shop like as many times as possible. Like Old Navy, I think had like a million different discounts. They're usually a pretty discount heavy brand anyways, but I shopped, I think like 6 or 7 times separately with them over the course of 2 weeks, because there was a shirt that I saw and I'm like, oh, today it's on sale, but it wasn't on sale yesterday when I shopped. Like, let me now get the shirt. And so for them, it's like, how many purchases can we get out of one customer, versus other smaller brands who are like, okay, let's get the most bang for our buck here. with these customers because we don't have different sales going on. So what can we do to sort of incentivize like a larger scale purchase so that we can win the Super Bowl? So yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Two ways of looking at it. I mean, I saw the same of just extended sales and then just the one day, 40%, 30% off. So that makes sense. And then Josh, what do you think on your end, or what did you see?
Yeah, I feel like I had somewhat of a different experience over here. And a lot of what we saw, kind of in contrast to what others have been mentioning, is we saw some retailers that historically hadn't done much discounting and really had stuck to like brand value in the past. And this year really either did deeper discounts or like a handful of brands was the first time ever discounting. Um, and really in conversations with them, to the points made, like they were understanding that they were losing margin. This was atypical for them as a brand. Um, but what they wanted to do was attract new customers, and really just customer acquisition was the key thing there. And they feel good about their retention efforts, reaching back out to clients, upcoming LTV types of pushes and things like that. So they were taking that short-term loss in terms of potential brand equity there, and just like the value of the brand, and never discounting and not being a discount heavy brand, um, with the offset of hoping to increase LTV and repeat purchase rate over time.
Yeah, I feel like probably every brand on this call can, say how hard it is to retain, customers and get new customers when it's just such a competitive market. So yeah, that's interesting.
The other piece, real quick, that stood out too was that a lot of these same brands over year, like they would see really good increases in AOV, and they felt like they just kind of were hitting somewhat of a peak, and so that was another thing that kind of added to them wanting to get back to just pure volume of new customer acquisition versus, again, trying to improve AOV year over year.
Yeah, and I think there's two ways you can do it that, doesn't completely discount your brand, right? Like maybe you just do it for the one day and you don't extend it out, right? It's just a one day. Maybe it's even for a time limit. Like we've saw our brands doing that where it was just like, the first like, I don't know, 6 hours of the day, it was like a flash discount of 30% off. And then honestly, right when that time limit hit, it went away. So I think things like that are also, things we've seen brands do and be pretty successful at as well.
I have a brand that did a kind of a combination of what Eric and Josh are talking about, where they usually don't discount. They don't discount throughout the year, but they're a luxury jewelry brand, and most of it is custom, but they only did a discount on their ready-made jewelry.
Hmm.
So it was exclusive. There was only a limited amount that they could do, and it was just for that weekend. And so it was just only once a year will they do it. And so I think it was a combination of both strategies, which was super interesting and really successful.
Yeah, I love to see that. And from a fulfillment perspective, I know a lot of brands like struggle with getting the orders out, especially if it's something like custom made. And so, yeah, we'll also see brands that have anything like custom embroider. They'll just do like their stock options. And then, yeah, that's where it's like, obviously, if you can ship it out, whereas like making over 100 orders of customization is definitely not easy.
A dog
Cool.
agrees.
Cool. So to kick things off with our next question, based on this year's Cyber Week performance, what are your top tips to help brands prepare for 2024? And Josh, I'll kick it off to you first.
Yeah, in preparation for 2024, obviously, like a hot topic is cookie deprecation. So getting prepared for that means you should have already had your first party data collection, just flywheel up and running. But if you haven't done it to this point, or it could be better, like for sure, dial that in. It's only going to be exceedingly important. And a lot of the retailers that I mentioned in the last question that are having, they're really in like new customer acquisition mode. It's harder to reach customers. It's harder to retain customers post cookie deprecation. So having that first party data, having your tech stack in a way that it's accessible, you're able to segment your users, segment your data, not only in like per se your CRM or maybe even your SMS practice, but across all the channels that you're live on. If it makes sense to have like an identity resolution partner so that you can really maximize the efficacy of that first party data, then start thinking about that now, because again, we've been talking about it for years, but it's only getting more and more important. And that's something that you can start doing now, and really ramp up to next year, and really strike it rich next year too.
Yeah, that's a great one. And then Elisa, how about on your end? Any tips you have for brands preparing for 2024?
Yeah, this kind of like piggybacks off what Josh was just saying. But one of the things that I find really funny is like brands that are not super interested in like making the investment from January or from really December up until like October as they're ramping up for like the big month. So like doing the work throughout the year and like having frequent touch points with customers who like are engaging but aren't necessarily purchasing, because November can be a month where you're able to acquire those new customers that like have been eyeing your brand for a while. So the brands that I personally shopped with on Black Friday, not Black Friday, I waited until the end just to see if I could get the best deal possible. But it's tough when you work in the industry, right? You know, like all the little tips of the trade. But I shopped with brands that I had never shopped with before. And it was because I had subscribed to receive their emails months and months and months ago. And I was getting all of their emails and I wasn't like prepared to buy because they were kind of like slightly more expensive brands. And I was like, okay, let me like get to know this brand, see if I can actually trust them, like read up on them, do my research, have those touch points, and like give the brand an opportunity to like establish a line of trust with me so that when the time comes, then I feel more comfortable actually shopping with them. And I think, I mean, there's a million and one marketing statistics, but I think like one of the old stats out there is like, it's like 19 or like in the 20s amount of touch points that a customer needs with your brand before they're actually ready to buy, especially when it's like a slightly higher, like a higher price point product. So like I would strongly recommend like the engagement piece. Like it's not just about like, did these customers purchase all year? Like, let's just offer them the discounts or let's just focus on them. But there's like a whole pool of customers that are eyeing your brand, wanting to purchase, but not ready to like actually invest. And so spending the time and investing in them a little bit, not like all your marketing dollars, but a little bit with them throughout the course of the year, it will give them more, it will give you more leverage to actually convince them or encourage them to shop with you when the time comes when you do have a really great sale. So I would say definitely targeting those people and creating segments around like people who are creating shopping carts, but not actually buying, and like people who are visiting your site, like an abandoned cart flow. Everybody knows what that is by this point. So it's not necessarily just about having an abandoned cart flow, but having a segment of people who have had a cart and abandoned it in the last 6 months, if you will, and targeting them for these special promotions. I think that will really help. But just not forgetting about those people throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, that's a great one. And Eric, I saw you nodding your head. If there's any tips or anything you wanted to add to that point.
I think she nailed it. I think that was a great point. I just to piggyback off that, I think that first of all, I'd say that brands really need to do a post game show. They need to get together with their folks and say, all right, what worked, what didn't, while you're in it, while it's fresh right now. Make those notes and revisit that, of course, next year. But like Alyssa was saying there, you know, we all refer to it as a Super Bowl, but you're not gonna get to the Super Bowl unless you play well, you know, in advance, you know? And so what we see, unfortunately, a lot of merchants that have that Super Bowl mentality, but they're not, like she was saying, putting in the work. You know, I kind of, to use another analogy, I compare it to a movie, you know, to where the climax of the movie is the most exciting, but you don't want to just people just to walk in and see that part of the movie. You know,
Right.
you have the ebbs and flows, you've got the dramatic falls. You can't have it all at 10 throughout the year. And so that's why your marketing calendar is so important, and to take that into account in the quote unquote off months, so that you're thinking about that ebb and flow that naturally culminates with a successful holiday season. Just to tag on to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Maya, anything on your end?
Yeah, to piggyback on what Josh was saying earlier, so as everyone knows, third-party cookies are going to be, for the most part, going away in 2024, August specifically. And most brand marketers are planning around paid ads and budgeting that way. And I think it would be really beneficial for people to think about their overall 2024 strategy in a different way. Essentially, we were all in a casino counting cards up until now, and we're about to not be allowed to do that anymore. And so, how are you going to hedge your bets? How are you going to gather as much data as possible? One, retention marketing is a very strong bet, lifecycle marketing, as well as, honestly, I think metrics are coming back. I think PR is going to be a bigger play. I think starting to look at your marketing budget overall and seeing other ways you can test and what other ways that work for you, so that when you get to Q3, it's not a huge shock.
Yeah.
I'm
that's
still
a
in
great
that counting cars analogy. That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's
that
about
is a
to say,
really
I'm
good
getting
one.
a lot of good analogies on this call that I will be taking. And to, wrap it up, I think we have time for probably one more question, which is my favorite question, is what is one brand you think nailed Black Friday, Cyber Monday this year, and why do you think they did so well? I guess I will start first with Eric.
Okay. I think Cabela's did a good job. Academy Sports. One of the things that I think that brands that are really centralizing around a holiday hub where you're driving the traffic to a specific landing page do really well with that. A lot of merchants just say, 20% off the whole site, call it a day. And they don't have any tricks up their sleeve after that. So when you've got a hub that has the tricks up the sleeve on that page and you're marketing that well in advance, those brands did a good job, and I want to call them out.
Yeah. Maya, I know you mentioned Our Place. Is there any other brands that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, so actually Saks Fifth Avenue, they did similar to what Elisa was talking about earlier, where spend $250 to get a $75 gift card and a discount. And so I thought that was pretty brilliant, not only because it's all luxury brands, so $75 is like a drop in the bucket, like it's nothing for them, but it also incentivizes people to come back and purchase again within the next like couple of months. And so you're excited. You're like, wow, $75 actually feels like a lot to the customer, but it's not to them and not to the brands that they're working with. So I think especially in the luxury market, gift cards are really interesting to play with.
Yeah, that's a great tactic, is the gift cards. Elisa, anything on your end?
I'm going to tie this. Yeah, I'm going to tie it back to the brand that I was just referring to that I had never shopped with before Black Friday. And the only reason why I think they did it so well, like their sale wasn't particularly phenomenal. And if you actually, like if you shop using their bundles, you get the same discount. So it wasn't like, wow, like so life-changing, but they did the work leading up to Black Friday, which is what won me over. Like, so the brand is called Zuma Nutrition. They sell like very like holistic supplements for like different things that you want to like improve or change in your life or whatever it is. And so I've been following them for a while via email and then also on social. And they haven't like gone out of their way to like say hi to Elisa specifically, but they've been sending all the right content for me and like really roping me in. And I've been wanting to purchase with them for a while, but I'm like, yeah, $75 for a supplement. I'm not sure about that for 30 days. Like it's a little bit beyond like a comfortable price point for me. But then I saw that they were doing 20% off on their whole site on like the day after Cyber Monday, because they extended the Cyber Monday promo as most brands do. And I was like, you know what? Like they've been good to me. I've been like talking to them and hearing from them a lot. It's a brand that I feel like I can trust. Let me go ahead and bite the bullet. And so I went ahead and shopped with them and I made a pretty large order because I purchased more than one supplement. But I'm really thrilled I actually got them and it's a great product. So I'm really stoked. But again, they didn't have like a particularly stellar Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategy, but I think it was just the way that they played their strategy leading up to it, which is what really won me over. And I wouldn't be surprised if it had won over other consumers as well. So
yeah, that's a great one. And then to wrap things up, Josh, anything on your end or favorite brand?
Yeah, I love that point you made, Elisa, about the like the type of content that's getting sent to you. And the brand I'm going to call out is called Legends. It's a men's athletic gear brand, which is a favorite of mine. But yeah, really great content in the lead up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It was like part promotional, part product line exploration. The discounts were good. The frequency in which I was getting things felt like optimal. It wasn't too high, it wasn't too low. And it actually got me to buy stuff later in the cycle that I typically would have. And to that point too, they also maintain good stock levels. So there's nothing worse than like having a great deal and then going to buy something and it's already out. Probably your fault for waiting too long. And I'm a procrastinator, but yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm always the one that waits too long. Perfect. Well, awesome. Thank you all so much for all those tuning in. Please feel free to head to our next session. And again, thank you to all the panelists. And I will see you guys all in a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks all.